Super. So I'll get us live here on Zoom in 5, 4, 3, 2. All right. Hello and welcome everyone to another Chat and Learn here with Power to Fly. My name is Mariella Marie, and as always, super excited to roll into this next hour with you all. I see we've got folks trickling in, so hello and welcome to those of you who are just joining us. We were just getting to know each other in the chat box first by letting us know where you're calling from. So we've got folks calling from Colorado, Seattle, Austin, Texas. I'm calling from Argentina and Patagonia. Our guest speaker is calling from New York City. So let us know where you are in the world, and you can go ahead and start to get the chat box warmed up, and I'll give you all a shout out in just a few moments. But I just want to go over some quick housekeeping rules here so that we all feel comfortable and confident in this next hour. I always start off by saying lots of crazy things going on in the world. You could be doing anything else, but you're deciding to be with us for the hour. So let's be intentional about this. I would love to have you participate by turning your cameras on if you feel called to do so, or hopping off of mute whenever you want to share your voice, reflection, a dream you had last night. I really love to set up the space that way so that you're not just listening to us talking at you. You are involved in the conversation. So let's really maximize this time. I really would love for you to pick our guest speaker's mind while we have her here for the hour. She's taking time out of her busy schedule to drop knowledge today. So be sure to participate, turn your cameras on, write in the chat box. If you have any sensitive information and you prefer to be held anonymous, you can find me in the chat box under Mariella Marie. You can write to me privately, and I will flag your question or your reflection to our guest speaker and keep you anonymous. For those of you who are joining live, you will get a rewatch email that will include all of the links to resources that our guest speaker is speaking about. So don't worry if you missed something and you say, oh, what was that link again? You'll get that in the rewatch email. And then with that said, I know that everyone is like, super multitaskers these days. But again, I would love for you to be present with us so that you can share your voice whenever you hear something come up that you'd like to chime in on. And the last thing I'll say is we'd love for you to follow us on socials and subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can keep up with all the great chats we've got in store for you. All right, so I'm just going to take a brief moment to introduce myself for those of you who have not joined a Chat and Learn where I've hosted before. I love the opportunity to spend time with you all virtually in these crazy times and just, philosophize and find out actionable steps based on what our topic is today, which I'm sure this topic will resonate with lots of folks. We're figuring out what do we do with our money? How do we invest? And how can we, approach our economy in a more holistic way? So be sure to, share whatever you want. I love to speak about emotional intelligence. So I will try to flavor our conversation to kind of have some remedies there and approach emotional intelligence in this conversation. I would love for you all to support the project that I'm working on that is called the Positive Force Team. You can go to thepositiveforceteam.org, sign up for our newsletter, and I will drop a link in the chat box a little later so you can have direct access to that. Otherwise, you can follow me on LinkedIn. I'd love to connect with you there. Just let me know that you joined this chat, and please be patient with me as I have some social media resistance. It takes me a while to respond, but I would love to connect with you all. All right, so with that said, I'm going to pass the mic to our guest speaker, Mina. Let us know a little bit about yourself, how you came to learn about Power to Fly, and what you're excited to share with us today.
So good afternoon or good morning or good evening, depending on where you are. My name is Mina N. Black. I am a financial advisor and a business advisor. I'm an angel investor. I am also Mrs. New York City 2019. Serial entrepreneur, mama of two precocious little monsters that I love to death, two little girls who keep me on my toes. And I came across Power to Fly. Actually have been following Power to Fly's Instagram page for a while. And I said to myself, you know what, I think some of the women would really benefit for some of the things that I can share as far as how to create wealth. I run a company called In the Black Financial Wellness. What we do is we provide financial and business guidance for anyone that's interested in becoming an accredited angel investor. And I can share a little bit about that later on. And essentially what we focus our attention on is how do we reach a certain income level and a certain net worth level, and essentially how do you reach your enough net number? And I'll talk to you guys a little bit about what the enough number is for each person. And I'm looking forward to today's chat. I live in New York City right now, but I'm actually from Ghana, West Africa. I was born in Ghana. I grew up in a tiny little village that is far off the beaten path, as they say. And I spent a good chunk of my formative years in Ghana. And then I moved to Virginia before landing here in New York City.
Awesome. Well, I'm super excited that you're here today, and feel free to, share more about your journey as we roll through these questions that folks have submitted offline. I'm excited to learn more about you and to support the great work that you're doing. So before we move on, can you let us know how we can find you when we finish this conversation, your social networks, any, websites or anything like that that you like to share?
Sure. So you can visit our website at www.getintheblack.net. You can find me on the social media platforms, either Twitter or Instagram at Wealth with Mina. That's my handle, Wealth with Mina. And I am always happy to connect with anybody. I'm always happy to answer any questions that you may have about personal finance, about business, about life. If you just need to vent, hit me up. I'm there.
I love that. I love that. I'll take you up on that, Mina. So be ready. All right. So I'd love for you to just hit on some of the principal themes that we'll talk about in the next hour, and then we'll roll into the questions that folks have submitted.
Sure. So a couple of things that I want to make sure that we address first off. I am constantly, I will say this, constantly being asked, how do I invest? Or, Mina, what stock should I buy? And there are some things that I think every single one of us can do when we're thinking about investing. One of the first things I want everyone to make sure that they walk away with today is to understand that investing is more than the stock market. Right? Investing encompasses a number of different things. The goal here with investing is just letting your money work for you. So, and there are a number of different ways for you to invest. That includes the stock market, but I want hopefully for you today to walk away with thinking bigger and thinking differently about how you can reach whatever that number is that you want to reach for your wealth, right? So some of the actionable steps I normally recommend to clients that are interested in starting to invest is, why don't you dip your toes in the investing waters by using a concept called micro investing? And there are a couple of apps that you can use to do some micro investing. Acorns is one, Stash is another. And if you download Acorns and Stash, I believe, are both on iPhone and Android. If you download either one of those apps, the way it works is you link your bank card or your credit card to your Acorns or Stash account, and then what they do is they round up the difference in whatever purchases that you make. So, for example, let's say I buy a bubble gum for like $1.50 or something. They'll round up the difference to $2. The 50 cents difference is going to be put into an investment account, and you don't have to do anything. You just select what your risk tolerance is. And I'll talk to you a little bit about what that is in a second, like how you can determine that. You select your risk tolerance, and essentially they create an investment portfolio for you. And little by little, over the course of a year, you can see your account grow, your investment account over the course. No, there is no monthly fee for Acorns. That's a great question. There is no monthly fee for Acorns. But little by little, you can see your account grow. I always tell clients it's a great way for you to set aside money for the holidays, to set aside money for special occasions. And it's a great way for you to get started with investing. But before you even download Acorns, one of the things I want you to think about is something called risk and risk tolerance. And what I mean by that is, investing is great. Investing sounds sexy. Investing is like, oh, you know what? I'm an investor. I'm doing this. But I want you to take a step back and ask yourself, why would you even invest in the first place? Meaning, how much risk appetite do you have to invest? For a lot of people, they don't have the risk appetite for investing. I know certain people in my family included, whereby if you mention the word invest or even the stock market, they automatically think you're investing, you're gambling, which is not even the case at all, right? Investing is really about letting your money work for you. And before you can even do that, you need to know how much risk you're willing to accept with each investment that you make. And the way you determine that is by taking something called a risk tolerance quiz. And if you visit our website, you can take a free risk tolerance quiz. And it tells you whether or not you're a conservative investor, a moderate investor, or an aggressive investor. Usually the younger you are, the more risk you can afford to take, right? For those of us that are closer to retirement age, then we have to be a bit more conservative with our money, making sure that we don't essentially take unnecessary risk with our money, right? So you need to ask yourself, would you be okay? Let's say you woke up tomorrow and the stock market was down 300 points. If you said to me, Mina, I'm an aggressive investor, but the stock market is down 300 points and I'm having heart palpitations. So that tells me that perhaps you're not an aggressive investor. Perhaps you're more on the moderate or even conservative side. So figure out exactly what you're comfortable with as far as risk goes before you even consider investing. The second thing that you really need to think about is your why. Everybody has their why when it comes to money. Money is something that I always tell people, money is something that we all want, However, we all want, but we aren't necessarily ready to do some of the work to actually get more of it. So figure out what exactly is your why when it comes to money, meaning what exactly are you going to do with the money that you generate? For some of us, for example, for me, I come from, as I mentioned, a small little village in Ghana, right? So my goal and my mission is to build that village so that it's a bit more modernized, a bit more modern, right? We don't actually have roads. Believe it or not, it's very much it's a dirt. Like when I say off the beaten path, I meant off the like a dirt path. That's what I really was referring to. So my mission is really to build that village up, right? So figure out what your why is, because that helps you essentially make your investment decisions. Because if you're able to tie that why into your investments, your daily investment decisions, then you know, okay, you know what, the market is up 10% today, or the market is down 20%, or Mina, the real estate market is not doing well. Well, you're not going to bother and concern yourself with worrying about that the day to day, because you have a long-term strategy and you know that, okay, I have a bigger goal here. I have a bigger mission in mind. And yes, I need to go through and adjust my investments, but I don't need to panic. So the first thing is figure out your risk tolerance, then figure out your why, and then choose the platform that you want to invest with. Right. So there are a number, I mean, I can't even tell you the number of companies that are out there that you can actually choose to invest with. Right. And it doesn't matter what country you are in. There are a number of companies that you can, brokerage firms that you can choose to invest with. If you're here in the US, one of the things I always tell clients is if you are ready to invest, make sure, for example, that if you say to yourself, I'm going to invest through my retirement account, my IRA retirement account, don't open up an IRA that's offered by a bank. Open up an IRA that's offered by the securities division of the bank. And the reason for that is because a bank IRA is different from a brokerage IRA. They're completely different. A bank IRA is literally just money or cash sitting there, right? Versus an account that you open up with a securities or a brokerage firm, and that allows you to invest the money, right? So figure out where it is that you want to open your account. Just keep in mind that the firm, if you're international, one of the things you need to ask if you're international is, does this particular company, this particular brokerage firm have clients that reside in my home country, right? Because if they don't, then it may not be a good fit for you, right? You want to deal with advisors and a firm that actually has the resources and has clients that are in your home country. I cut my teeth as an advisor. I've been an advisor for I'm not going to say how many years. Let's just say in the early 2000s. Let's just say in the early 2000s. I cut my teeth at one of the world's largest wealth management firms, Merrill Lynch. And when I was there, we had a division that was the International Financial Advisors Division. What they did as international financial advisors, they had clients from all over the world. Some of them had clients that were strictly in South America. Some of them have clients. I remember one advisor, all his clients were from Nigeria, right? So he being here, he was here in the US and he had clients literally in Nigeria. He served that population really well because he knew the culture. And most importantly, he knew about the laws, all right, the laws that regulated investing in those countries. So find out if the firm has any clients that actually reside in your country, right? And once you've decided that, the next step after that is actually choosing what to invest in. And this is often the most complicated and often most confusing part of investing for a lot of people. And the reason being, obviously, you have thousands and thousands of different investments to choose from, right? But I would tell, one of the things I always tell clients is, don't go out and spend all your money on one investment or all your money on one stock. Let's just say, for example, you want to buy Amazon stock. Amazon stock is like $1,300 per share for one share. For one share, right? Well, rather than putting all your money in that one stock, why not buy a mutual fund that has Amazon as one of the underlying securities? The way mutual funds work is they have stocks, bonds, and even cash that are underlying, meaning that it's a basket full of these different types of securities, right? So instead of me just buying Amazon, I can buy a mutual fund that has Amazon as one of the stocks. And that way I have exposure to Amazon. Maybe that fund has Twitter. Maybe that fund also has Facebook. I have exposure to lots of different types of investments, not just one stock, right? So think about possibly investing in a mutual fund versus the individual stocks from day one. The reason being, you want to make sure that you are diversifying. And this word is going to keep coming up in our conversation today. Diversify as much as possible, right? So you want to make sure that you invest in at least a mutual fund, right? Now, I don't know, Marielle, if you want me to go to the second piece here. For me to,
Absolutely. Take us away and I'll.
all right. So
Oh, it looks like I'm on mute. Sorry about that. I was going to say you're taking us there. Continue, and I'll roll into the questions that folks have submitted offline.
awesome. Awesome. So when you're creating a workable financial investment plan, one of the things that I always, one of the things that we do in my firm is we actually have our signature program, which is, we call it Roadmap to Angel Investing. And one of the first things we do is we actually work on mindset. Believe it or not, a lot of us have some, let's just say, some mind issues, some mind trash, some mind gunk about money, right? Myself included. I grew up in a Christian household, a very, very Christian household. And in that household, one of the, if you're familiar with Christianity, if you're familiar with the Bible, there's a Bible verse that says it's easier for a camel to get through the needle of an eye, the eye of a needle, than a rich man to get into heaven. Growing up, I took that literally. I was like, then I can never have money. Nope, I won't get into heaven. I literally, I took that completely literally, right? So for me, I had to work through that. And if you think about here in the US, one of the things that's very common, if you watch or have seen any TV program about wealthy people, they're always doing some really bad stuff, right? Whether it's like Dynasty or like Melrose Place, they're really not people that you want to be around. So imagine like seeing that on a regular basis. You actually start to believe that wealthy people are bad. You start to think that wealth is bad, and you start to really think that it's not really something that you should aspire to or to have at all, right? So you have to honestly start with the mindset and be comfortable with building wealth, be comfortable with investing, be comfortable with having money. Because I find that if you say that, well, you know what, I don't really want money, or it's like, I don't want to be wealthy or anything like that, it's going to make it much harder for you to do any of this. None of this will be possible if the mindset is not right, right? So to me, one of the things that the first things we do is we work on our client's mindset. So before you can even work on that, the financial and the actual, like the nitty gritty numbers, let's get this right here. Let's make sure that we are okay. And that's not to say that every day we're going to be like, yes, okay, I'm good. No, there'll be days when you're like, oh my God, I don't know if I can do this. This is insane, right? That's okay. There is absolutely nothing wrong with that, right? We are all a work in progress, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? We're human, we're works in progress, right? But you have to make sure that you have that right. The next thing that we normally like to do, we focus on the fundamentals. And what I mean by the fundamentals is, well, if I asked you, how much emergency savings do you have? Meaning that if you were to be laid off from your job, right? If you were to not have a job for 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, and we all know the year that we just had where literally the earth was closed, right? And a lot of businesses laid off a number of people. If you were to be let go from your job, what are you going to fall back on? I.e., where is the funding going to come from to pay for your bills that you may have, right? So you need to make sure that you have an emergency savings set aside at a minimum for everyone, regardless of your marital status. You should have at least 3 months worth of living expenses. That can be challenging, right? So what I like to tell people to do is start with just mini micro goals. Okay, you know what? I'm gonna make sure that every time I have a dollar coming in from my work, I'm gonna set aside 10%. And you do it by percentages, not by a fixed amount, not by a fixed number, because obviously depending on what kind of work you do, maybe you're a freelancer, that number is gonna change, right? Sometimes you may make, some months you may make more than others. So that number is gonna change. So if you start with like 10%, of every dollar coming in being set aside in that emergency savings account, that's a great way for you to get started. So that's part of the fundamentals of creating a workable financial plan. The next thing is making sure that you have little to no debt. Now, this is one of the things that trips a lot of us up, right? Credit cards, I was one of those people. In college, they used to let credit card companies come on campus. I don't know why they did this. Honestly don't know why they did this, right? They would let them come on campus, and some of us, thought it was free money. So they gave me the money. I was ready, willing, and able to swipe. And of course, that led to me saying, oh, wait a minute, I got to pay you back. What do you mean I got to pay you back? I thought it was just free money, which we all know that really doesn't exist, right? So the second step is really looking at what kind of debt you have, right? And then tying it back to your cash flow. You're going to hear me say this word a lot, right? Exactly. Higher ed is a business, right? Tying back to your cash flow. All right, we want to make sure that we have enough cash flow coming in to not only pay the minimums on all of our debt, but we want to pay a little bit extra so that we can get the debt down as much as possible. Now, you probably heard some people say debt is bad. I don't believe that. Leverage can be good. It all depends on how you use the debt, right? So, for example, I went to school, undergrad, I have my MBA. I took out student loans. For me, that was an investment. It was worth it, right? It was absolutely worth it because I don't come from money at all, right? So it was absolutely worth it, right? For now, if I had told you that I went and spent $120,000 on credit cards, and you probably want to know, what exactly did you buy for $120,000, right? But no, I spent my money on like undergrad and grad school. That's what to me, that was worth it, right? So there is good and bad debt, right? Credit cards can be good if you pay it off every month, right? This is where it's actually absolutely key. If you need to build credit, if you're here in the States, if you need to build credit, a great way to do that is just literally getting a card, either a secured card where you put in a certain amount of money, right? You put in a certain amount of money deposit down, like $400 or $300. And then you essentially build your credit that way. Another way is you get an unsecured card, you tie it to a subscription, and low price subscription like Netflix or Hulu or one of these streaming devices that's low priced. And that way every month it's automatically deducted, and you just make sure you link a checking account to it and make sure that it's automatically paid. And that's a great way for you to build your credit as well, right? So the first step is mindset. The second step is working on your fundamentals. You start with your emergency savings, then we move down to our debt. And then the next thing we're going to focus our attention on and make sure we know what our net worth is. This number is key. Every single person listening, there are two things you should know, two numbers that you absolutely need to know: what your cash flow is every month and what your net worth is. Now, net worth is everything that you own, all your assets. Take your checking account, your savings account, your phone, anything that's of value, your house, right? The equity in your house, anything that's of value, subtract it by your debt. And what's left over is your net worth, right? Is your net worth. So you need to know what that number is. It doesn't matter what country you're in. It doesn't matter how old you are. You need to know what that number is. And you also need to know how much you're bringing in every month, your cash flow. Ideally, hopefully, you're cash flow positive. That's not always the case. There are days where you're like, okay, I'm a little negative this month, right? But our goal is to determine ways for us to increase our income so that we are always cash flow positive. Because the way I like to tell my clients is that cash flow, that extra cash flow, is what's going to feed all of our different investments, right? We're going to use that to feed all the different things that we can invest in, right? So taking care of the fundamentals, know your cash flow, know your net worth, right? And then there are some other things that you should know, like insurance, making sure if you have kids, making sure that you have life insurance, making sure that you have an estate plan, a living will. This is something that every single person should have. If something happens to you and you become incapacitated, does your family know your wishes? You want that to be known. And have they given that document to the hospital, right? You want that to be known across the board, because the last thing you want is for you to become incapacitated and your family or your relatives during that difficult time to be fighting over what to do, right? You don't want them to do that, right? So that is all part of creating a workable financial plan, creating the fundamentals. And part of that is making sure you have a retirement plan set up. Now, I am a non-traditional advisor. And what I mean by that is I'm not going to tell you to work till you're 90 and save and scrimp and save until you're 90. And then, okay, now it's time for you to enjoy your money. We're not doing that. We're not doing that. No, we're not doing any of that. What we are going to do, though, is we're going to make sure we have the fundamentals set aside and we plan accordingly. And one of the ways to do that is ensuring that part of our workable financial plan is an investment plan that includes a retirement plan, right? Now, if you work for a company, most companies offer you some type of retirement plan of some sort, right? A 401k or something like that, making sure that you invest in that. If you work for yourself, you can set up a small business retirement plan for yourself, especially here in the United States. You can sock away a lot of money in a small business retirement plan and reduce your taxes by a huge amount. Why wouldn't you take advantage of that, right? So that is part of creating an investment roadmap that you can actually live with, right? And once you have literally created figure out the fundamentals, the next piece is the investing piece. And this is, as an investment advisor, this is my favorite thing. This is my favorite thing, because we use all the cash flow, the positive cash flow, to feed the investment piece. And when I'm talking about investing, you're going to create an investment pie. Think of it like a piece of pie with different slices, right? Like different slices of pieces. So for example, one slice may be investing in the stock market. Another slice may be investing in real estate. Another slice may be taking a small percentage and investing in cryptocurrency if you're comfortable with it, right? Another slice, there's so many different types of investments. Some of my clients, they do concert investing, ATM investing. I can't even tell you all the different types of investments that are out there that are available. The reason that you want to do that is because there is a way, there will be times when the stock market is down, but real estate may be up, right? And there'll be times when you say to yourself, you know what, the markets are down, but you know what, I bought this gold brick over here, so gold is okay. Gold is up, right? So you want to make sure you have all the different types of investments, because you remember your goal. Remember that enough number I mentioned earlier? We're still working toward that, right? That investment pie is what's going to help us reach that enough number sooner rather than later, right? So for every single person here, make sure that you know what that enough number is. What number is good for you? What number are you comfortable with aiming for? It could be $100,000. It could be $1 million. It could be $5 million, right? And the way to figure out what that number is, ask yourself, you're retired right now. Let's say you're retired. Where's the money coming from? Where are you living? Are you traveling all the time? Because traveling is expensive, So you need to make sure you have enough money set aside for that, right? Do you have kids? Do you have a family, right? That enough number, there's a lot of different factors that go into helping you figure out what that enough number. But the biggest thing is your why, knowing what your why is. And that's really going to feed all of this, right? Go ahead, Marielle.
Mina, you are dropping so much knowledge. Like, I love that you are on this like high level, let's get real. Let's talk about the self-awareness piece first. I love that you started off with, you need to know what's happening inside. What's your purpose? And I love that you went back to, okay, this is what I want to do for according to how I was brought up. I want to go back and make, some changes in my hometown. And that allows you to focus more. So I love that you start from the root of the core, which, if I can speak a little bit about emotional intelligence, the first pillar is self-awareness. So before giving anything out, before trying to feed anything else, feed yourself, right? And then figure out how you can stay on that path, because I'm sure it's more inspiring. It makes more sense. Before we roll into questions here, I want to know, is there a story that comes to mind with one of your clients? Of course, keep them anonymous, but something that can inspire us, because I know some folks, have that same trauma that you spoke about earlier, where they are like afraid of money, or they think money is bad, or, I'm not the one because I don't see myself represented when people are shown who have money. So what's a story that you've seen from, I don't know, from your clients or somewhere in the world that can inspire someone to take the other way? Like, this is for you.
So in my industry, financial services, anybody that's ever tried to work with a financial advisor knows that the industry is very white male dominated. When I started, it was literally me and 3 white men in the office. One of them is now he's literally like my second dad, right? But it's that kind of industry, right? So for most people, when they go and they talk about they are interested in building wealth, or they try to even open an account at some of these places, some of the people will just look at you like, they'll give you a nice little side eye and escort help you on your way. I will say one of the biggest things, and one of my favorite things, is watching a client's mind open up. And I'll give you an example. What part of our program is working on our mindset and we do a strengths test. And one of the goals that every single client has to do is they have to set their big, hairy, audacious goal. So for many of my clients, they're like me. They started out, they're like, is this really possible? No way. What? So we call it this uncovering the untapped wealth, which is the wealth that a lot of the 1% have access to, that most of us, we think is not for us, right? So we've all set our big, hairy, audacious goal. And it's fascinating to watch this transformation after they've done some inner work. It's fascinating for someone to say that, well, I think I can bring home $3,000 a month, to all it's done. So now, like, Mina, I want to bring home $84,000 a month. Like, there is just fascinating to me. And to me, that to me was when the actual transformation really happens, is because they realize, like, holy crap, this is easy. Like, one of the best things I've ever heard from one of my clients, and she said, Mina, all my life I've been playing on this chessboard right here. Like, I always thought personal finance with this. After meeting you, I'm over here on this chessboard, right? Like, it is fascinating to me to see that people, most people like me, are like me, in that we grew up thinking it's not for me. It's not for, I can never do that. No. You know what? It's not for me. Well, I always like to share my story. You know what? You do realize that I literally grew up in a village, no running water. I used to take baths outside. Like, do you see the transformation that's possible, right? The transformation that's possible. And a lot of it is obviously hard work. If you're willing to put in the work, I am of the firm belief that there's nothing you can't do if you're willing to put in the work. Yes, there are some institutional things that are in place that will do their best to get in your way, right? And our mission is to push through all of that, right? To push through all that and say, here I am, deal with it.
Haters gonna hate, haters gonna hate. Gotta move past that and figure out how to is network building as well. It seems like you're speaking about that without saying it specifically, but you're starting to connect with people who are like-minded to be able to inspire them. I sense some mentorship opportunities happening as well. There are so many questions that actually you've touched on a little bit with this beautiful and thorough introduction. But I just want to invite our folks, because I know we've got some folks writing in the chat box. So I want to say, if you have something you want to share, please, please, please write in the chat box or hop off mute now. If you need some time to ponder, you can raise your emoji hand and I'll put you in the queue to call on you. But I do want to hear from you. Mina's dropping so much knowledge, and I know you all have some specific questions. So just to highlight a couple questions that are already in the chat box here. Regarding student education, higher education is a business. Shake my head. This is what Kathy says, and I'd love to hear you respond to that. Lorena asked, does student loan debt also count? So let's take those two comments, and I'd love to hear you reflect on those, Mina.
Sure. So higher education is absolutely a business, and don't let anybody tell you otherwise. It is absolutely a business, especially, and if you know me for longer than 2 seconds, you'll hear me rail against the for-profit institutions. And the reason being that, unfortunately, a lot of them are very predatory, and they go after people in a very, sometimes immoral ways, whereby they force you or they get you to sign up for things that you didn't sign up for, right? And you weren't even aware that you were signed up for it, right? So be very, very, like I said, I worked it. Be very, very careful with some of these for-profit institutions. But higher education absolutely is a business. If you don't think so, look at some of the endowments of some of the Ivy Leagues, right? Some of these billion-dollar endowments. You have to ask yourself, well, what do you need all that money for? What do you need all that money for, right? Well, we got to do the new stadium. We got to do really, I'm here for the education. I'm here for the education, right? So you really have to think about it. Think about what it is that you're actually getting from some of these institutions, right? Now, somebody asked about student loans, whether or not does it count. It counts in terms of investing. Now, here's the thing about student loans. I think student loans are worth it, right? Depending on what exactly you're actually working toward. It's okay to start college and say, like, dude, I have no idea what I'm going to study, right? My undergrad degree, I was a double major in psychology and history. That was my undergrad degrees, right? I was literally doing that. So it's absolutely okay for you to change your mind, because I went and worked in a law firm. I was like, oh, this ain't for me. I'm done. And that was the end of that, right? I did not want to go to law school anymore. And I said, you know what? I like to learn about money because no one in my family knows anything about money, right? Like we're not a wealth-oriented family at all. And someone in our family needs to become more wealth-oriented, right? So I do count student loans as part of the good debt, dependent on the institution, depending on how much you withdraw, how much you take out, right? I'm also a big proponent of working while you're in school. Now, for everybody, that's not possible, obviously, right? And the reason I'm a big proponent of working while in school, working doesn't mean you have to go clock in every day. No. Well, tell me what you're good at. Because working can mean that, you know what? In my dorm, all the kids don't know how to cook dinner. They don't know how to make meals. I'm going to start cooking from people and charging them money. Or they don't know how to do their laundry. Well, you know what? Once a week, bring your laundry by. That'll be $500. That's what I mean by working. Like, it's essentially almost hustling and figuring out how you can essentially make money while you were in school, right? There's a number of different things that you can do in school that you can actually use toward funding your education, right? And obviously student loans is a big part of that, because if your university charges you $60,000 a year, good gosh, I don't know if you're going to be bringing in $60,000 a year, right? However, you can put a nice dent in that, right? So I think there's an opportunity for you to use student loans, but use it wisely, right? Think about if you're about to start school, ask yourself, do I really need to take out this amount of money? And if not, how else can I bring in some funding?
I love this. I love this. So we do have a question in the chat box, but before we roll to your question, Lorena, since we are talking a little bit about, school and what to do after, there was a question that was submitted, just to help folks who are transitioning from education to the workforce. So when is the right time to start investing? I'm new to the workforce, so just started to make money. I'm unsure if I should start investing now or just save for some big expense in the next 3 to 10 years and invest once I have made those big purchases. So feel free to dive in. Any recommendations. I love also that you were career pivoting as you were graduating and working, and then went to another. Like, I don't want to do law. I love that. Again, the first pillar of emotional intelligence, your self-awareness is super strong, and it reads through how you're able to transform, bring skills from what you learn into another one, so that you can figure out how to be your best self, bring your best self to the table, and not suffer while making
Yes.
money. So please let us know how you want to comment on this question here.
Absolutely. So the best time to start investing is yesterday. And what I mean by that, is if you're ready to start investing, please go ahead and do so. Now, I'm not saying invest with money that you need. Never invest with money that you need. You need to be able to invest with money that you're okay with losing. Because if you are telling me, Mina, well, my rent is $500 a month, and I'm going to take that $500 and go invest it. Well, sis, you and I need to sit down and have a nice little chat, right? We're going to have a nice little chat. I'm going to tell you that's a no. I'm going to tell you no. However, we can take maybe $1 from elsewhere and actually start doing some micro investing, right? But the best time to start investing is now. Do not wait. If you're just starting your career, one of the things I wish I had done when I first graduated from undergrad was start investing. One of the things I wish I had done when I was like young and I was working in fast food was invest, because earned income, had I thought about it, my parents could have opened up a Roth IRA for me with my earned income, right? With my fast food money, right? So the best time to start investing is yesterday. Don't wait 3, 4, 5 years. And this is the thing about that particular question. The person asked about waiting and saving for big expenses. One thing that you may want to consider doing is investing for the big expense. Is it a home? If you know that it's going to be 3, 5, 10 years away, put that money away in an investment account, right? And that's not to say go ahead and invest aggressively. No, you don't need to do that. But get a little bit of a return for stocking that money away, right? But don't wait. The first thing you want to do is find out if you're working, if you just started a job, does your employer offer you a retirement plan, like a 401k, a 403b, a TSP, 457, some type of retirement plan? If so, do they match your contributions? If they do, at a minimum, you need to make sure that you're putting away enough to match whatever their contributions are, right? Once you've done that, let's move over to the Roth IRAs and the traditional IRAs. Let's then go ahead and invest there. And then we'll come back to the 401k and max that out, right? But there's an opportunity for us to actually start now. There's absolutely no reason to wait. This is one of the things I always teach. I teach an investing 101 class, and every single class, the students, I'm sure they're sick of me saying this. I've been teaching this since 2012. They're sick of me saying this. And that is, you're better in the market than out of the market, right? You're better investing than saying, as my grandmama used to do, put the money under the mattress. We're not doing that. We're not doing that. That's inflation will eat away at our money. So let's not do that. Let's go ahead and actually take advantage of this markets that are out there.
So yesterday is the day to start. I love that response. So I just also would love to hear you speak about, because again, I come from a family that didn't have a lot of money, so I had to look for scholarships. And I know we're kind of sticking on school a little bit, but let's move into the workforce. So like, when you are deciding, so let's say you've accumulated some debt, right? This debt that we are like, either it's the credit card companies on campus or it's the student loans, and then you're in the world and you're like, okay, how do I survive?
Mm-hmm.
Can you speak a little bit about, marginalized communities and how we don't know what to do? We are expected to, of course, participate in society by paying our debts, by, making investments and things like that. But for the family that either doesn't find the time or have the resources to educate us to then say, okay, this is how you do it. I feel like, finding someone like you is gold to then say, okay, this is another avenue that I had no idea. I'd never heard this in the house. I never saw anyone like me on TV, doing this. So can you speak a little bit to that, how we can do better as marginalized communities in the world? Because you can speak to, lots of different marginalized communities, but what is something that we can try to do better at within our own communities, so that we don't expect someone to just drop knowledge, because it's available?
Absolutely. So one of the things I like to rail about is the pay inequities for women versus our male counterparts, right? It doesn't matter what race you are. Unfortunately, if you're a woman, you're still going to get paid less than your male counterpart, right? So for most of us, I'm a big proponent of reading. I know it's not fun. If you don't like to read, pick up an pick up an audiobook, right? I'm a big proponent of reading. And what I mean by reading is I don't mean like hopping onto some of these like forums and then like as somebody told me like they were listening to some guy on like Facebook. I'm like, did you look at his background? He's a media person and he's teaching you about stocks. There's a disconnect here. There's a disconnect here. But there's some fantastic books that you can get started with. There's a company called Lightbulb Press that I often recommend to clients that are just getting started with investing. They have different little, they call them guides. They are like probably 50 pages at most. They're little teeny books that are a great way for you to learn about investing. They cover everything from mutual funds, bonds, stocks, you name it. And they're little like pamphlets that essentially are a great resource for you to learn about and learning. Um, if you don't have access to like their internet or anything, go to the library. Like one of the courses I teach is at the local library. If there's a library near you, go to the local library, grab a book from the library and start educating yourself. I think one of the things I didn't mention was when I was in undergrad, the reason I transitioned into this space was to help my family because I believe in having a family member that's an expert in like different fields. So like my sister and brother are both pharmacists. We need a plumber in the family, we need an attorney, and I'll be the finance person. Like I'm a big firm believer in having different professionals, right? And when I realized that nobody in my family fit the personal finance space, well, you know what, I'm going to start reading. So that's what I did. I just started picking up books. I would go to the library and pick up a book, right? And learn and just start teaching myself. And you know what? There's a saying, nullus in verba, and it means take no one's word for it. And what that means is you can look at the Facebook post, you can read the blog post, but you need to be able to actually educate yourself, right? And a book is a great way for you to do that. And some of the books that resources that I mentioned, Lightbulb Press, it's a great starting point for you to learn about investing. And they even have books about personal finance. There's literally, I think one of them is called Guide to Personal Finance or Guide to Money. And it teaches you about banking, like just some of the foundational things that we all need to know about the banking system. At any given moment, I'm reading between 4 and 5 books. Like there's a great book I'm reading right now called Layered Money, and it's about the evolution of the monetary system, right? Since like since way back when, right? And how money essentially has evolved. And now we're in the digital currency space right now. So if you can, if you don't like to read, get an audiobook, like get an audiobook, get a cassette if you're old like me, get a cassette, and, and like listen to a cassette. But please, just take a few minutes a day to read a little bit. And believe it or not, that is doing more than 99% of the population when you do that.
Yes, and read a book, a full book, and even if it's 3 at once, don't just read a post and, take someone's word for bond. I love that you're highlighting that because I feel like a lot of this comes with, information and how we can teach ourselves and also reflect and contemplate. Is this connected with my value system? Who is this person? What's the win for them? Is it my same win? So just, organizing that. And I love that you're crack open the book or the audiobook. That's great. So I told you all that time would fly. We've got about 15 minutes left. So I'm going to flag some things that are in the chat box. Lorena, a couple minutes ago wrote, what should one search or look into to set up a small business retirement plan as a freelancer? Or is that the same as an IRA, Roth IRA?
It's a great question, Lorena. So as a small business owner, even if you are a solo person, small business owner, a couple of accounts that you should look into. There is an individual 401k if you have no employees, right? Individual 401k, a SEP IRA, which stands for Simplified Employee Pension IRA, and there's a simple IRA, right? So those are the 3 types of accounts that you can set up for yourself as a freelancer. Ideal if you're just a freelancer and it's just you and it's just going to be you for the long haul, you may want to look into the individual 401k. Some firms call it a solo 401k, and it's very easy to set up. You can go to any of the big brokerage firms, Fidelity, Vanguard, like any of them will up, right? Barclays even, you can set them up there, and you can start setting aside money. And I believe this year is like $57,000 literally set aside in that type of account and save on your taxes as much as possible. Now, if you say to yourself, I'm not going to contribute that much, that's too high. Well, you can still set up an IRA or a Roth IRA, depending on your actual income, your income at the moment. You can set up one of those and set aside $6,000 this year if you're under the age of 50, or if you're over the age of 50, an additional $1,000 on top of that, right? But IRA, Roth IRA, a little different from the small business retirement accounts you can set up.
Awesome. Thank you, Lorena, for that question. Let us know if you want Mina to dive in deeper. You can just write in the chat box. Until then, let's move on to Anna's question here. What are the best investment platforms for stocks in particular in Europe? Or what are acceptable fees within a range? There is a lot of financial information in English on the web, but mostly valid for the US market.
So in that particular instance, as far as what's the best investment platform, the best investment platform depends on what your actual goal is. Is your goal to be a day trader? And I'm gonna address this in for most people, because for a lot of people they think, oh, I'm going to invest, I'm going to buy stocks, and then that'll be the end of it. Right? If you're going to buy stocks, are you willing to sit there and watch? Are you willing to sit there and pay attention, right? And essentially do what I used to do, which is sit there and watch the markets all day, right? Because when you do that, then you essentially are creating a business for yourself, right? Because now it's a 9 to 5, right? Individual stocks, nothing wrong with it. Nothing wrong with it. If you are considering investing in some of these platforms out there, you may want to consider looking into, if you are in Europe, you may want to consider looking into some of the actual the companies that are in multiple countries. And like, for example, Barclays. Like Barclays is in Ghana, like, which, like they have a division in Ghana, and they do have a platform that allows you to set up an investment account. The reason being, unless you know that individual, like HSBC is in a number of countries, right? But you have to go to the securities, the investment division of HSBC. You can't go to the bank, HSBC, and expect to be able to buy a stock or buy a mutual fund, because they don't offer that, right? So I would highly recommend looking at companies that are international, meaning that they have different branches all over the world, right? All over the world before you actually start investing. Now, in terms of what's acceptable in fees, well, it depends. So for example, it depends on how much money you have, and it depends on what you're trading. For example, you know what, when I worked at Merrill, there were days when a commission for the trade commission. So when you buy a stock and you sell stock, sometimes you have to pay a commission, a fee for buying and trading. For some places, they have zero commission. Some places the commission is like $1,500 per trade, or $2,000 per trade, right? So it depends on what you're trading, how much money you have to invest, right? But if possible, Anna, look for firms that have no commissions, or like no fee for trading. Look, if you're going to buy individual stocks, look for firms that have no fees for trading. I don't know if Robinhood is known for that here in the US. I don't know if they're in Europe yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's something that they're looking at over the next year or so, right? But look for firms that have no fees for trading. And if you can, I would also recommend looking into mutual funds that have no fees, no load. They're called no load, no sales charge for mutual funds.
Okay, great. So this is, I love that you're diving in deep, and because we are short on time, let's just repeat now. If for those of folks who are on the line with us, if they need to reach out to you to kind of follow through with some questions, or maybe they have something come to mind tomorrow, how can they reach out to you, Mina?
Sure, they can actually, you can send me a DM on Instagram at Wealth with Mina, Wealth with Mina all together, on Instagram or Twitter, either one, or you can send me an email. I'm always open to answer any emails that you may have. My email is Mina at intheblackfinancialwellness.com. It's my full company name, and it's just my first name, Mina. You can send me a message, and I'm more than happy to chat with you about any questions you may have.
Awesome. Okay, so we have someone, JB is asking, can you please repeat the 3 types of retirement plans for freelancers or independent consultants?
Sure. So the individual 401k, SEP IRA, that's SEP IRA. It stands for Simplified Simplified Employee Pension IRA, and Simple IRA, SIMPLE IRA. So if you visit, if I don't know if you're in the US, but check out Fidelity, Vanguard, and check out Charles Schwab, and they do have those plans available. There are some of the other firms do as well, like TD Ameritrade is great for trading. It's great for investing as well. Some of the other firms do have it, but some firms are known for certain things like trading, and some firms are known for, like Vanguard is known for mutual funds, right? That's what, like, that's it, they're known for. And some firms are known for like actual accounts. Like Schwab is great for setting up accounts.
Awesome. Okay, so we've got about 10 minutes left. So I want to try to get to a couple more questions and see if anyone wants to hop off mute and maybe share their journey. Let us know if you have anything that you'd like to ask Mina before our time runs out. But before we move on to that, while people are getting warmed up to hop off mute there, I want to hear from someone before our 10 minutes is up. So find the courage. We want to hear from you. Mina, how do I know if I can trust my financial advisor? What credentials should I look for when choosing one? This is a great question that was submitted before the chat.
This is a fantastic question. So this is, I do get this actually quite a bit. When you're looking for an advisor, something you need to make sure that the advisor is doing is the advisor is working in your interest versus the firm's interest. And the reason I ask that is I don't manage assets anymore. I don't manage, like, you can't call me and say, Mina, buy me Twitter. Because I don't do that anymore. I used to, but I don't do that because I'm what's called an advice only, or I provide unbiased advice, meaning that, oh, let's go ahead and look at your accounts that you have, and then I can recommend which firm makes the most sense based on what you have, right? When you're looking for an advisor, make sure that the person is working in your best interest. Now, as far as credentials, there is, in the financial advisory world, in the financial planning world, there's like the CFP, the Certified Financial Planner designation, that is often touted by a number of organizations, including the board that created the designation. But here's the thing. I am of the mindset that you want to make sure that the person that you choose, you and that person connect, like that person actually gets you. I come from a judgment-free space, meaning that we've all made mistakes, myself included. So make sure that you and that person really connect on a more than, it's not just about, here, give me your money and go away. I'm just going to do what I need to do over here, for your money, right? But find out whether or not that person has experience dealing with people like you. And what I mean by that is, does that person actually care about you? And I have had coworkers, other advisors, that literally would say, well, if the client doesn't know there's a fee, we'll tell them. Just, to me, that's a no-no, right? Find out that the person is actually, if they're bound by certain types of investments, do they have to sell you certain types of investments, right? I can't tell you the number of times, literally within the last 3 to 5 months, whereby I received clients, both from this firm in particular, and the advisor that they had get individually, like 2 different advisors, put them in very expensive mutual funds, very expensive investments that the client didn't even understand the investment. That's the other piece. Make sure the advisor explains to you what they're doing. Because the last thing you don't want an advisor that says, okay, I got it, go, bye, right? You need to actually understand what it is that they're doing. Because you know what happens when you don't? Madoff, for those of you that don't know, there was a gentleman by the name of Bernie Madoff who ran off with $65 billion, right? Who took a lot of people's money, right? So it's called, and it's something called the Ponzi scheme, but understand what it is that they're putting your money in. And this is why I always recommend reading and actually educating yourself, because it all comes down to you being able to be an advocate for yourself when you're having these conversations, right? So there aren't designations that I highly recommend, like CFP is one, but to me, I've encountered some CFPs that aren't necessarily well-versed because they're new to the field, right? And they just got the CFP because it gives them standing, right? But make sure that the advisor is not bound to sell you something like from their firm, right? Because that's not in your best interest.
Yes, I love this, the advocacy for yourself piece, so that we don't just say, oh, I'm not good at this, or I don't have time to do this, or I don't know much about it, so I'm just going to pass it on to someone else. But you have no idea what their intentions are. You need to see if, you can connect authentically, and the value system is okay. Because what if you want to invest in social responsible, blah, 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 but this company is only, focused on, I don't know, mining companies that are mistreating their employees, and you have no idea that that's happening. So I love that you're highlighting that self-awareness piece, also that, advocacy piece, so that you can participate in the learning, and educate yourself. So thank you for that. Does anyone want to hop off of mute? We've got about 5 minutes left, and I would just love to see if someone wants to hop off mute and voice a question or reflection before we end this conversation. I'll hold for a light. Go for it, JV. You got your hand raised.
Hi. So my question is, I hope you can hear me.
Yes.
Okay, so I just started, I just opened a TD Ameritrade account like literally last month.
Mm-hmm.
So I put money in it, but I feel overwhelmed because I don't know what stocks to like research. I was told it's better to look at stocks under like $5 or less, like things that companies now starting out. And also I was told to diversify. And there's Bitcoin, there's all kinds of stuff. And I'm just like, oh my God, I feel like I need a PhD to understand.
That's completely understandable. And you're not alone. I assure you, everybody that sets up their accounts for the first time, myself included, you're just like, oh my God, what am I supposed to do now? What exactly am I supposed to do now? So The only thing I would push back a little bit about is finding stocks that are $5 or less. So there's something called penny stocks that are often they're often recommended by friends and family that they mean well, but unfortunately, the other side of the penny stock issue is that there are people that are selling and trying to get rid of their stocks while you're buying. And when it comes time for you to sell, there'll be nobody there for you to sell to, because it's called a pump and dump scheme. That unfortunately, that's my biggest issue. Yeah. So when you're starting out, here's the thing I want you to do for yourself. Since you just opened the account, right? One thing I want you to start doing is start looking at mutual funds. Morningstar.com is great for research. They have something called a screener, and a screener will allow you to search for certain types of investments, right? So for example, you may say to yourself, you know what, as Mariella mentioned, like socially responsible investing opportunities. So you can go in and Google socially responsible investing companies and see what comes up and see what kinds of companies come up in that respect. And you start doing your own research. But the screeners allow you to search for companies. Maybe if you say, you know what, I want to invest in companies that are $5 or less, they'll pull up, like Yahoo Finance is another one. You can pull up companies that meet that criteria, right? And then from there, you start doing your homework. You start researching. There's a website called Seeking Alpha, and it has a ton of information and resources that you can use. And it has articles written by people, other investors, and you can see and get to know some of the how analysts and investors think. And they even offer you transcripts of earnings calls. Whenever a company issues an earnings report, they do an earnings call. So you as an investor, let's say you decide you want to go invest in like Johnson & Johnson or something like that, right? Well, if Johnson & Johnson had an earnings call, the Seeking Alpha will have the transcript. So you can actually go read the transcript and see what you can glean as far as whether or not that investment makes sense for you, right? So start with using a screener. But my first thing I always tell, number one rule of investing, invest in what you know. Invest in what you understand. It's one thing for you to tell me that, Mina, I'm in the AI world and I love AI, blah, blah, so I'm going to invest in. But if you're in AI and you tell me, Mina, there's a great financial services company over here that I want to invest in. Well, how much do you know about financial services? Well, if you tell me that you're investing in because so-and-so told you to, well, we need to have a talk, right? Invest in what you know. If you are walking around and you see everybody's using an iPhone, well, think beyond what you just see. Who makes the screens for iPhones? Think about like all the accessories and all the things that go into making that product, and then start researching the companies that make the products that you see everybody use on a regular basis, right? And that's a great way for you to actually also do some, I call it some ground level investment research, right? Because you're seeing things around you all the time. The question is, there are investment opportunities around you all the time. The question is, are you actually paying attention, right?
Yes,
Great,
I
thank you.
love that. Yes, thank you, JV, for hopping off mute. I appreciate you. I know that you're not alone as well with your frustration, so it's great that you hopped off mute to voice your question. Mina, thank you so much for that thoughtful reflection. We've got about 1 more minute, so I want to let you have the last word. Can you leave us with some food for thought, Mina? Let us know how we can connect with you when we finish this conversation to support the great work that you're doing as well.
Absolutely. So honestly, the last thing I want everyone to take away from this is I want you to take a step back and ask yourself, why? Why do I want to invest? Right. And that's not to lead you away from investing. You know where I live. I live in the investment world. That's where I recommend it for a meeting. But ask yourself why you want to invest, and then figure out what that number is. Remember that enough number? If you say to me, Mina, you know what? I need to set aside, I want $10,000 a month coming in, and I want to be able to live off of $10,000 a month. And I want to have investments that pay 5%. Well, that means that you need about $2.4 million, right? $2.4 million. Okay. How are you going to get to that number? Let's work backwards, right? So that's how you want to think about all of this. Figure out what that number is, and then let's work backwards and try to figure out how we can essentially close the gap between that number and where you are today. Because really, that's all it's about, is closing that gap, figuring out where the disparity is and how we can get as close to that number as possible, and with obviously being responsible. As far as people reaching out to me, please feel free to connect with me on Twitter or on Instagram at Wealth with Mina. Or if you are interested in setting up an appointment, please, you can email me, or you can go to our website and click book a call, or even on Twitter and Instagram, you can, there's a link for you to book a call with me, and we can chat and learn a little bit about you and where you are and how I can be of service.
Awesome. Thank you, Mina. I've learned a lot in this conversation. I'm sure that our live callers have as well. And if you join this live recording, you will get a rewatch email with the resources that Mina has dropped, all the knowledge that she's dropped today, just so you can click easily access and click some of the links to the apps that she mentioned or some of the books that she recommends. I see some folks are writing in the chat box. So fear not, you will get that rewatch email with some links there. And Mina, thank you again so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule. I know that you live in a world of numbers and possibilities. So I appreciate you sharing your inspiration with us. And hopefully you all who have listened live are left inspired as I am, and we can, put our value and our worth to use so that we can be responsible, as Mina is saying, and just, create some more wealth for ourselves. So thank you so much, Mina, and thank you